What's up, guys? Mr. Second Passport here. So I moved here in the Quito area just this past week, and I was in the city, kind of near the Parque Carolina area in the north central Quito. For me, if you're gonna live in the city, that's the best place to be. You're just kind of right in the middle, everywhere you want to be, and you're near the park if you like to do exercise and stuff. But like a lot of the different areas in Quito, it has its drawbacks, right? Or you could even call it, for some people, deal breakers. So it kind of depends on you. For me and my family, it was the deal breaker for Quito was it's just too damn cold and damp. It certainly rains more in Quito than it does in the lower valleys near Quito, right? And it's colder. Like you'd need a jacket on and a sweatshirt to go out in the late afternoon or night in Quito. And that's from me, a Midwesterner from Ohio that pretty much tolerates cold pretty well. And so that was a deal breaker. We were often getting the sniffles and stuff like that. Plus, we were living a lot of Quito is built onto the side of a mountain, so you have these huge steep descents. If you ever leave your place and want to walk anywhere, you find yourself having to huff up, right, super steep ascents and stuff. That's also kind of annoying. There's a little bit of smog at certain times of day too, and it's just noisier, busier, and some people like that, and some people don't. Right? We wanted kind of something different. So it kind of depends on you, but it's a really cool city, Quito. I love hanging out, and it's definitely for if you're single and you're in a nightlife, it's definitely the place to be. Now, when looking at the other areas of Quito, they'll have their problem too, right? So a lot of expats like Kumbaya, this area, this valley right next to Quito. It's a little bit lower, a little bit warmer. But for other people, myself included, it's kind of expensive for what you get. A lot of the construction is older, right? A lot of people don't like that, and you still have to pay for Ecuador really high prices. It's kind of hard to find something that most of us would consider acceptable for under 700-800 bucks a month, right? For a multi-bedroom, maybe small house or whatever in the Kumbaya area. And for other people, it is lower, but it starts to get a little buggy for some people. That's one nice thing about being in the city is you're high enough at close to 3,000 meters where there's no bugs, really. You don't have to worry about mosquitoes or anything like that. So in Kumbaya, maybe a little bit starts to come out. And for some people, it's a little bit warm and things are a little bit more spread out. And in Kumbaya, starting in Kumbaya, it's helpful to have a car, right, to get around, right? So that's another thing. In the city, you really don't need one, but when you start to get out to the valleys of Quito, you start to feel the need of a car. Now, you can get around with Uber and buses, but depending on where you live, you might not be near a bus line out in the valleys. But in Quito, you're always near a bus, tons of Uber. So yeah. Tumbaco, next door, Tumbaco to Kumbaya. Its problem is it for me, I live there, it's just too dang hot, right? It's even lower than Kumbaya. It's kind of in a hole or a valley, not much breeze, and especially in the daytime when the sun's shining, it can really be hot. A little too hot for my liking. Also with Tumbaco, there's this issue where you basically it was kind of built unorganized in an unorganized manner, and so you're like it's hard to even walk your dog in Tumbaco in a lot of places because there's so many street dogs, and a lot of the roads aren't well paved, and like you'll have this really nice gated community next to just this shanty area, right? And then it's just kind of spotty like that all through Tumbaco, right? So, in most of these shanty places where people live, it's like 5 dogs per one person, right? So you're gonna have your dogs that are gonna be charging you in the street, especially if you're walking your dog, and it's just kind of a pain. Noise can be an issue in Tumbaco sometimes, and sometimes even smells. People have complained about smells just because there's so much street food and stuff going on in Tumbaco. You know, if you have a sensitive sense of smell, that can waft over into your place, and maybe you don't like that very much. Um, Next door to that, Puembo, it's a little bit more upscale, but there, because it's just so long, you really need a car to live there, and you're starting to get far away from the city too. So for some people, that's nice, and other people like it a little quieter. Other people, it might be a little too far and extreme. When you pass the airport and get over to places like Yaruki and Cheka, I wouldn't consider those just because they're too dang far from everything. But also, for whatever reason, this road from the airport north on through Yaruki and into Cheka and then Quinche after that, there's just always so much traffic, right, going in this direction. Also, if you're living, especially in a standalone house, it's not the safest place to be. There can be break-ins and things like that when you start getting out in that area. Now, Los Chillos, right? The Valley of Los Chillos, you get to places like San Key and San Rafael. Nice places to live, but tons of traffic, right? That's the problem with Los Chillos, and it's really, really far from the airport over here. It's really far from the city. Anywhere you want to go, right? And then if you go to the north of town, uh, it starts to get quite cold, right? And you get really, really far again from everywhere you want to be, probably um, in the city itself. And it also gets, it's a little bit more, how do I say this? Lower class area when you get up towards the north part of Quito. Now, so where did I move if I kind of have a problem with all these different areas? Well, I found a place that not many people know about. It's right in between uh, the Cumbaya Tumbaco area, which I generally like, except for the issues I mentioned previously, and Los Chillos, which I also generally like, except for the issues I mentioned previously. Right in between, along this road here called the Intervalles, it's this town called La Armenia. It's right in between both Cumbaya and Tumbaco, about 15 minutes along this road, and you're about 10 minutes from the center of Los Chillos, right in Conocoto area. So right here in the middle, I like it because it's warm, but similar to Cumbaya. So it's warmer than Quito, which I like, but not as warm as say a Tumbaco, which I also like. Um, I like it too because it rains a lot in the south of Quito the most and in Los Chillos. And then as you start to get over towards Cumbaya Tumbaco, it starts to rain less and less and less. And as you get out towards the airport, it rains even less. So I like that where I'm at here that it rains less than the south and Los Chillos, but it rains a little bit more than say at Tumbaco, which I don't mind the rain. It kind of brings the uh, coolness when you're in this area of Ecuador. And you're super near Quito. You're just a $5 cab ride away, about 20-25 minutes from the city if there's no traffic, and 15 minutes, like I mentioned, to Cumbaya Tumbaco area, 10 minutes to Los Chios. So you're kind of in the middle of everything, but it's a really nice area, as I'll show you around here, La Armenia. And it's a place that almost nobody knows about because even if you drive and you've lived in Ecuador for years, in Quito for years like I have, most people when they're driving from Los Chios to Cumbaya Tumbaco, they take this road and they pass this little kind of backwater town called Guangopolo, and they think that's what this whole Intervalles area is like. But actually, you have to turn in Guangopolo and go up the hill a little bit, and that's where I'm at in La Armenia. So that's kind of the reasons in a nutshell why we decided to move to this area. And so far, I'm really liking it, and it has a really nice park nearby too that reminds me a lot of California living actually when I lived in Southern California. So let me show you around. Okay, so here's the Intervalles Road that connects Cumbaya to this area where I'm at, called the Miravalles, and it's in La Armenia. Now, it's a bunch of gated communities that sprouted up, and there's a reservoir for the whole city of Quito right here. There's a real nice park called Parque La Armenia. Reminds me a lot of my time in California. It's these huge, tall trees that aren't very common in Ecuador, or at least in Quito, in this area. There's another look there. Nice place to come run, walk. They do yoga classes as well, things like that in the mornings. And just a bunch of gated communities that look like this. Pretty standard, right? 3 bedroom, 2 bath. You can usually rent for around 500-600 bucks a month, um, and with a full-time guard and things like that. So anyway, I'm Mr. Second Passport. That's why I chose La Armenia area here in Quito. Take care.